Bluegrass Jam Along is proud to be sponsored by Collins Guitars and Mandolins, each and every one built from the sound up in Austin, Texas. Bluegrass Jam Along is also brought to you by Token Picks, individually machined guitar and mandolin picks to bring out the best in you and your instrument.
His stuff is just deceptively hard. You think it's easy, but he's always thinking in different ways. And I thought I knew how Earl played until I started really digging into these recordings, and I know nothing. He could do so much stuff just on at the spur of the moment, just like go off in some crazy direction.
Hi, it's Matt, and you're listening to Bluegrass Jam Along, the podcast for anyone and everyone who loves bluegrass. Hey everybody, welcome back to Bluegrass Jam Along. This is the second of 3 episodes recorded at this year's Sore Fingers, which is a great bluegrass camp over here in the UK. A couple of days ago, I put out an interview with Michael Daves, chatting about the duo record he's got out with Jacob Jolliffe that celebrates Jim and Jesse. In a couple of days more, I'm going to put out an episode celebrating Sore Fingers itself, chatting to the staff, the students and the tutors there. But today, what I've got for you is a really cool chat with Tony Trischka. As lots of you will know, Tony's been working on a project called Earl Jam. Volume 1 came out a year or so ago. Volume 2 is out now. And I chatted to him about Volume 1 when it came out, so I'll stick a link in the show notes if you want to go and dig into that. But I caught up with him at Sore Fingers, where he was one of the banjo tutors, to chat about Volume 2. There's a bunch of new stuff on there, part of the same project, but just it's such a fascinating thing. It is a really interesting project in terms of the history and the genesis of it. But it also has just resulted in 2 albums of really, really cool music, which is the main thing. So yeah, you're going to hear me chat to Tony all about that. As I say, there's a link in the show notes to the first episode if you want to go back and catch up on Volume 1. And I'll put links into where you can go and find the music and learn more about the project. But that's it, pretty simple one. Have a listen to Tony Trischka telling me all about Volume 2 of Earl Jam. Tony Trischka, welcome back to Bluegrass Jam Along. Great to see you again.
Great to be here, Matt. Thank you for having me.
And I'm excited to talk about Volume 2 of Earl Jam. We talked about the first volume a year or so ago, a record that I love, as is this one. For people who maybe didn't hear that episode or that record, can you give us a quick recap about the project?
Yes. I was working on there are 2 Earl Scruggs books out there, and the second one was transcribed by guitar players instead of banjo players for some reason, and there was a lot of inaccuracy in it. In fact, a whole lot of it was inaccurate. So I was approached by a guy named Bob Peekle, who lives in Syracuse, New York, to help work on this book and make corrections for the 3rd edition. And the 2 of us and this other banjo player worked on it. And in the midst of this, this guy, Bob Peekle, would send me a recording of Earl Scruggs and John Hartford jamming, like on one tune. And then a couple of days would go by and he'd send another one. And I go, what is this stuff? And it turns out that Bob had been at these jam sessions at John Hartford's house or Earl's house, depending, a few times. And there were these jam sessions between right around 1987 through 1996, I think it was. Earl Scruggs had decided he was maybe going to get out of the business. He'd had a family tragedy, and he'd been on the road for years, since the early to mid 40s, and he was thinking of giving it up. And I guess he talked to John Hartford about this, and John wasn't going to have that happen. So John said, "Hey Earl, let's pick, let's jam." And I guess John instigated a whole bunch of jams that lasted for all those years. And sometimes it would be, again, at John's house or Earl's house. And sometimes it was just the 2 of them jamming. But anyway, this guy, Bob Peekle, had been in some of these jams, and he told me that John Hartford reached out to him one time and said, if my house burns down, then all these recordings will be lost, because John had recorded just about every jam with this cheap cassette machine. So the quality is not like high quality, but, you can hear it. And so John sent all copies of all the tapes to Bob Peekle, who then in more recent times digitized them. And after teasing me with 2 or 3 of these tunes just by themselves, he sent me a thumb drive of over 200 songs, everything he had from the jams that he'd gotten from John Hartford. And sometimes, again, it's just the 2 of them, sometimes the 2 of them and a bass player. Sometimes you can hear Sam Bush in there or Del McCoury, folks like that, Mac Wiseman. And it's just this priceless collection of tunes, many of which we'd never heard them play before, like Here Comes the Bride, and some Elvis songs, things like that. And then Earl is playing, it's Earl Unleashed, as I like to say, because on a regular recording, he would just get one solo, maybe two, if it wasn't an instrumental. And here he can take 2 or 3 solos in a row. And he's just relaxed and just playing what comes to mind. And a lot of really great stuff comes to mind. Like he plays Cripple Creek, and it's like with blues licks in it. Like, what? There's no blues in Cripple Creek. It's just a straight ahead fiddle tune. And he would just do that because he felt it. So, just a totally exciting and eye-opening experience. And I've transcribed maybe 40 or 45 of these tunes thus far out of 200. And I go back to the well every, once a month. I'll go back and find some other cool thing that he did. So, it's this just endless treasure trove of music to go through.
And it's really cool, kind of, you mentioned Sam Bush occasionally there, and Sam plays on this record, and John Hartford is there kind of as a presence and a songwriter through some of the materials. So it's lovely to have that thread through it. Mm-hmm. And did you record this bunch of stuff at the same time as Volume 1, or was this definitely a 2-stage thing?
There was a certain amount from the first recording sessions. In other words, with Billy Strings, he came in and we did 2 songs. Brown's Ferry Blues is on the first one and Gentle on My Mind is on the second. But that was done at the same time as I was recording for the first album. And the same with Del McCoury. I've got Columbus Stockade Blues on this album, and I had 2 other tunes on the first album, but it was from those sessions. And the same with Molly Tuttle. Those are recorded at the same time that I was working on the first album. But then there were other folks like Sister Sadie I specifically recorded for. This was much later, and we did it for the second album along with the Steel Drivers as well. So there are some things that are new, or newly recorded specifically for the second album.
One of the things I really love about both volumes is, there's this idea of taking something, transcribing it and putting it out into the world, but at the same time, then that just being the starting point for something. It's not kind of just do this the way Earl did it and that's that. And that track Billy Sings Gentle on My Mind is a wonderful example of that. And just the kind of the intro and the outro of that and the little journey that song goes on. It's got a whole life of its own, hasn't it?
Right. Yeah. Bela Fleck produced both of the tunes that Billy did, the Billy Strings did. And he had just great ideas for both of them. So, for Gentle on My Mind, he started with this cool fiddle thing, playing against the chords in a certain way. And then he said, okay, at the end of Gentle on My Mind, let's do a slap bass thing. And then go into space music, just free associating. And at the very end, Billy started bending the string in a certain way. It sounded like a bird call or something. And we all started doing it, kind of found the same notes. And then it ends in a very discordant shave and a haircut, 2 bits. So it was just a lot of fun stuff, just really loose kind of fun stuff going on in that particular tune, especially the second half of it. So I thank Bela for those production ideas. That was really fun making that happen. So, yeah.
And there's a bunch of people on this record that aren't on the first volume, but there's somebody that I hadn't heard, Farayi Malek, who was not a name I knew, not a voice I knew, and what a glorious thing that is.
Yeah, her name is actually pronounced Farayi. It's spelled F-A-R-A-Y-I, but it's pronounced Farayi Malek. And what happened is, it's a song called Mom and Dad Waltz. And I did record it with Alison Krauss, for the first album, because I've been friendly with Alison since she was a teenager, and I was on her first album. So we go back a long way, and we're really friendly, and she's really fun to talk to. And, so she said, can you send me some tunes for me to listen to, from these jams so I can decide what I want? And I sent her like 5, and she said, nothing is really striking me. Send me some more. I ended up sending her like 20 tunes. And finally she heard one that she thought would fit her voice. And it was Mom and Dad Waltz, a Lefty Frizzell tune that he recorded in the 50s and wrote for his parents. Anyway, so we went into the studio, and Sam Bush is on there, and Jerry Douglas, and Jason Carter's playing fiddle. and Todd Phillips on bass. And Alison sang it, but before she went in, we were talking. She said, I'm having some ear troubles. I'm not hearing notes quite right. Something in her eustachian tubes or something. I don't remember. Her hammer, anvil, and stirrups in her ear. I'm getting all medical here. Anyway, so she sang the tune, a scratch vocal, which means it's, not the final vocal, but something that'll serve as so you get the idea what it sounds like. And it was just gloriously beautiful. You can't even, it was a very much of a heart song, and you'd be in tears. It was very old fashioned, but the way she sang it, it could be contemporary. But Alison is a perfectionist, and she just didn't feel like it was as good as she could do. And so she said, I'm going to try to record it at my studio, her own studio. So she went back and spent a decent amount of money trying to get the vocal the way she liked it, and she just never could get it because she was having these troubles. So she finally just gave up on it, which is like, oh, too bad. Because the original vocal, her scratch vocal, was like crazy good. Anyway, so I figured, okay, well, that's that. For the second album, I'm not sure what I'll do. I'll figure something out. And Ken Irwin, who runs my record, one of three people that runs my record company, Down the Road Records, unbeknownst to me, got a hold of the basic track that Alison had sung across from my engineer. Again, I knew nothing about this. And Ken lives near Boston, and Farayi Malek is living in Boston and teaches at the Berklee College of Music. And so, unbeknownst to me, Ken got a hold of the basic track, talked to my engineer, and added triple vocals on it, just sang the basic melody, and then added harmony parts, and gave it back to Ken. And Ken sent it to me. What do you think of this? And here's this tune that Alison was on that was supposed to be on the first album. Here's this other incredible voice doing 3-part harmony and all by herself, overdubbed. And I said, wow, okay, I'll use her. But then we went into the studio and she did it officially. And even though the scratch vocal would have served just as well. So, yeah. And so we're doing some gigs with her now. She opens up for us, and then she sits in with us, and we do songs like Deportee by Woody Guthrie, which is, we need more things like that these days in our country. But anyway, so that's how she came into my orbit, as it were, or me into her orbit.
And well, there can't be that many people who've been called in to replace an Alison Krauss scratch vocal over the years.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's a whole bunch of really nice stuff on this. And what I like about it is there's lightness of touch as well as just absolute quality. And I love the fact that you don't shy away from keeping the banjo parts where Earl would have played them, but moving things around to suit people's voices. And you did that with Sierra Ferrell on the first record and with Billy on this record, and just popping a key change in. And it's the kind of thing that could feel clunky and just doesn't. It just feels absolutely natural, like it's always been that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure how it worked out that way. It just did. Yeah, nothing feels strained to me. I don't sit around and listen to my own music hardly at all, but I've listened to this album a number of times since it came out, because I was never listening to it all the way through from beginning to end in order. And it's been a long enough time now that I feel disassociated from it, and I can just listen to it as a third person, like it's not even my music. And it's like, oh, this is really nice, because there's so much variety in it. Like Farayi's got her whole this triple vocal thing, and Del's got this just really straight down the line, killer, wonderful bluegrass sound, and Billy's got this, it's not more progressive, but a little more progressive kind of sound, and then the crazy stuff at the end. And then there are two solo things that I found. I think so far I found 3 things where Earl's just playing solo banjo, and he does Boil Them Cabbage Down on the latest one, which is that. I've got that, and I've got actually Chicken Reel, I think, didn't make it on there, but anyway, a couple of things of him playing solo, which is glorious to hear what he just did solo. But yeah, I think everything does feel kind of natural. And someone was saying it was reminding them of Circle Be Unbroken album by the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, just getting a whole bunch of different people in and letting them do what they do best, which is not what I was thinking about. I just wanted to have different people interpret these songs. And which I haven't mentioned yet, that every note that I'm playing is note for note what Earl played in these jam sessions. I just transcribed what he played. And then when it came time to record them, I just had the tablature on on the music stand, and I'm playing note for note what he played, none of my own stuff, which at times would make it hard because his stuff is just deceptively hard. You think it's easy, but he's always thinking in different ways. And I thought I knew how Earl played until I started really digging into these recordings, and I know nothing. He could do so much stuff just on at the spur of the moment, just like go off in some crazy direction. So anyway, yeah.
And what glorious thing to have spent so much time with somebody's music and still be finding things in it at this stage.
Oh, always. Yeah. Little subtle things. Like when you do backup on the banjo, you're always hitting the offbeat, like 1 and 2 and 1 and 2. And like you might have your thumb on just hitting the first note with the thumb and then pinching 3 strings for the upbeat. Boom, ching, doom, ching, doom, ching. Just to, fill out the sound and have a little upbeat thing going on the offbeat. And then I was just casually listening to this recording of Earl and John together, and I suddenly noticed that Earl had done like 2 or 3 measures of just hitting downbeats with a pinch, so it's stronger than the upbeat. And everything else I'd ever heard Earl do was with the upbeat, boom, ching, doom, ching, and here he's going ching, doom, kind of reversing it. And it was like, you're not supposed to do that. Oh, well, you're Earl. You can do whatever you want. So, yeah, it was funny. And there's a lot of stuff like that, just unexpected stuff you just wouldn't imagine.
And just the variety of things are on here. You've got the classic sort of fiddle tunes and the songs you'd expect, but there's just a range of stuff because they're not expecting anybody else to hear it, and they're just playing. And you end up with something like "Here Comes the Bride," which is a bit of music from a Wagner opera, kind of translated through lots of people's weddings, and now on into this.
Yeah, that was a fun tune. Again, I was going down the list of tunes that were in these thumb drives, or in this thumb drive, and I get down into the H's, and Here Comes the Bride. What? I hadn't noticed it for the first album, or I would have put it on there. So, we got to do this. So I worked up Earl's solo and got Michael Cleveland to play the fiddle part. He's kind of okay, like ridiculously amazing. And then, anyway, yeah, just in the recording, you got John and Earl jamming, and you got John Hartford doing a dance. He would do it on the plywood board at gigs, and people love to see people dance and sing and play the fiddle at the same time. But here's just Earl and John, just the two of them. They're not on stage, and John just felt like dancing, so he did. He's playing the fiddle and dancing, and Earl's backing him up. And so this was during the session that this guy Mark Schatz was on, who used to play with Bela, but he was on the session, and so I had him dance, and the fiddle was by Michael Cleveland, who is ridiculous. So we did a version of that and recreated right down to having the dancing going on also, which was it was just fun, a really fun tune to do.
And then there's a lovely moment at the end with the track with Bruce Molsky, Wish We Had Our Time Again. Is a really sort of lovely, reflective way to end it.
Yeah. It's another John Hartford tune. Because I didn't have any John Hartford tunes on the first album, but now I've got Gentle on my mind in this one. And because Bruce is so deep with fiddle tunes and things like that, and he was friendly with John Hartford himself. So he knew that what John would do is he would take an instrumental and then turn it into a song. So he took Wish We Had Our Time Again, but he based that, but turns out that John borrowed that from Wish I Had My Time Again. And then he just changed the word, put words to it and changed it to Wish I Had My Time Again. Or Wish We Had Our Time Again. And so I have him record Wish We Had Our Time Again the way John sang it. And then at the end, we go into a fiddle tune, which is Wish I Had My Time Again. And it becomes a fiddle thing that I just back up with a rolling banjo. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful record. It's a lovely way to end it. And it's, I enjoyed the first record so much, and it's always interesting approaching a volume 2 of something that you've enjoyed that much. And every bit is good. I've loved this one too. And it's been absolute joy to get to talk to you again.
Well, the same here, Matt. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Bluegrass Jam Along is proud to be sponsored by Collins Guitars and Mandolins, each and every one built from the sound up in Austin, Texas.